It's been quite a first 4 months for me in North Dakota legislature. We're just coming towards an end. As he said, we're working on some North Dakota drainage law reform, and as of this morning, that bill is on the governor's desk. I hope it gets signed. So, they told me that I've got 20 minutes to speak on 2018 Farm Bill, Title II, Title III, conservation reform. In fact, this afternoon I've got to head to Georgia for an ex-Bison football player's wedding who's marrying the captain of the cheerleading team from Georgia Southern. So talk about pouring some saline on the wound there. But so I'm going to try to make this a little quick. I want to thank NDSU, the CAPS department. There's actually a lot of people in this room that I look up to for leadership. I am a bit young, and calling me an expert, I would not in drainage water management, but my boss is. As was stated, I was hired in 2014 by Roger Ellingson and his family. Roger was a customer of mine at a hotel, and he stayed with me for about 2 years. On and off, coming up every week, and every time he was in town we had breakfast and talked politics, and because that's what's usually on in a hotel lobby breakfast room. And over those 2 years we really got to know each other, apparently agreed on a lot of things in the world. And one day he walked in with a job offer, and I said, I'm honored, but I don't really know anything about water or drain tile. I'm from Devil's Lake, if that means anything. And he said, well, you know people, and I'll help you learn water. So I appreciate the opportunity that he has given me and my family, and I feel comfortable, and I don't plan on working for anybody else in my life. So I will leave you with that. On that. North Dakota drainage law, the reason I want to talk about that for a second is because without local friendly laws, everything we do federally means nothing. If you get rid of U.S. Fish and Wildlife easements, for instance, and now all of a sudden you can tile some of this ground, or you can improve some of this ground that your grandpa put into easement 45 years ago, if you don't have a local law that is allowing you to improve that ground, what the hell good is it? So that's where we wanted to start. And we wanted to start locally to make sure we understood what drainage water management is, what it means, and what we can do with it before we attacked. And with the 2018 Farm Bill, I think we've set ourselves up pretty well to move forward. Some of that bill does some minute things, like requires a water board member to attend water management classes before they join the water board. Since he's in the room, I'm going to use him as an example. My friend Dan Wogslin, and when he was 24 years old, water board chair or county commissioner came and said, "Hey, you'd be good on the water board." Oh yeah. Next, week later, he looks in the newspaper. He's on the water board. He doesn't have a clue what he's trying to do. And, Dan, that was maybe, 10 years ago, I suppose? Give or take. One thing we really, really wanted to do was take the emotion out of North Dakota drainage law. In North Dakota, we have a problem of, I want you, Tom Astrip, to do well. I just don't want you to do better than me. And your grandpa broke my grandpa's shovel, so I don't want to give you, the ability to dump your water down the ditch that runs parallel to my farm. So taking those emotions out and sticking to the science and the facts, we hope that farmers will quit arguing with each other and get down to business of improving their land. Minnesota, they believe that it is your right to improve your land, and I think we do here too. That's all I'm going to talk about that. If you have questions, we can always chat before or after. This is my homestead deed from Ramsey County. This was found when my grandpa passed away. We cleaned out his house, and he had a bunch of stuff. And it is amazing to me how we wrote and expressed your right to do things 128 years ago versus how we a look at our government today. I intended to read all this to you, and I'm not going to, but it is amazing what's in there. But my favorite line out of the whole thing, and I guess I will read this part, is there's a whole bunch of stuff, and then it says that the United States of America, in the consideration of promises and the conformity of several acts of Congress and in such case made and provided, have given and granted, and by these presents do give and grant, unto the said William N. Otis and to his heirs the said tract above described, to have and to hold the same together and with all the rights, privileges, immunities, and appurtenances of whatsoever nature through unto belonging unto William N. Otis and to his heirs and assigns forever, subject to any vested accrued water rights for mining, agriculture, manufacturing, or other purposes, and the rights to ditches, reservoirs, and used in connection with such water rights as may be recognized and acknowledged by local customs, laws, and decisions of courts, and also subject to the right of the proprietor of a vein or body to extract and remove his one therefrom, should be the same found to penetrate or intersect the premises hereby granted as provided by law and testimony whereof President Benjamin Harrison, President of the United States. Now, what does all that say? My lawyer looked at me and he gave me a thumbs up. and it's really hard for me to understand how in 128 years we have gotten so far from where our founding fathers were that wrote this kind of thing 170 years prior to that. So we need to really understand why it is that our ancestors came here. They came here for the freedom and the ability to have their own land and to grow their own families. And I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that with this administration, with the optimism in this country right now, we are headed back to that way of saying, listen, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. We're going to do it responsibly. We do not design engineering projects to hurt our neighbors. We do not want to flood them out. But it is time that agriculture starts working together instead of being conquered and divided as we have been for the last 35 years. Subsurface water management, most of you I know in this room, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But now in the last 10, 15 years, we've really started looking at it as subsurface water management and not just draining your fields like we had for 50, 100 years. We started tiling in 1812 in New York. A guy named Johnston brought it over from Europe, and today we are different, and we are better than we ever have been, and we can start using subsurface water management to manage the water and not just drain onto our neighbors. So without being too redundant, I don't want to keep on that. I do want to show you a couple slides. That's a pattern tiled field on the right that we did north of here. Of course, you've seen pictures of the Red River Basin. The idea behind all of this comes to this diagram or map right here. This is a a sub-watershed in Richland County. Now, it's really hard for you to see, but there's legal drains cut throughout there, and all that area in the pink, each one of those quarters dumps into one of those legal drains. Now, this could be pattern tiled. It would take us our company's pretty large, so we could do this in a year. We could probably do 2 of these in a year, design and build. But the key is, because people say, well, that looks an awful like the Waffle Plan that was released 10 years ago. What Waffle Plan in flood management in the basin talked about was holding water back per section, but did not talk about subsurface water management. And it is our belief and the experience of my boss that with a control structure on each quarter, with a control structure or a slide gate on each section, the ability to remove that water in July, August, September, October, going into freeze up, you do give yourself that capacity 3 to 4 feet in the surface. And people say, well, if the ground's frozen, tile's not going to work. And that's true. But again, go back to the control structures and hold back your water. As that water sits on top, your frost is going to be coming out that much quicker, and at that point, your ground starts to soak it up. You release it at a responsible rate downstream. So federally, this is what we're kind of looking at is as far as the next revolution in water management. That's a closer look. It's 27,000 acres. We could probably build that with control structures for around $22 million. Look at the amount of prevent plant. Now that was till 2014, so I should get a new slide. But look at where we live, and we are paying ourselves. Our, money comes out of your check. It goes to the federal government, and then we mail it back so you don't have to farm. I think that this is going to be a slide of the past, and hopefully, when I'm close to retirement, we can pull this out and laugh about how we used to react, because it's time that we stop reacting and start being more proactive on what we're doing in agriculture. What does all that damage cost economically to the Red River Basin or the Devil's Lake Basin? I think we do know. I think we do know how much that costs. Ask the car dealers, how many pickups they're selling as opposed to a couple years ago. Lift stations, here's one for you. Our company has developed the ability to remote monitor a lift station, control structures from your computer, your iPhone, your tablet. So if Northwest Quarter of Ferry Township or, quarter, whatever the number you want, you can go on, you can see when it's run, you can see how long it has ran for, how much water is coming out of it, and if you want it to start. Let's say you've got a flood event, right? And the county sends out can you please shut off your pumps? Well, you don't need to drive around to your dozen pumps. You can just go right on your tablet and shut it off. So we've started installing those. We're putting them on the new projects, and any farmer that wants to have us install that, they can for a reasonable amount of money. I would leave you with that, but the one thing I wanted to talk about just quickly was the cost sharing and spending money to not farm. I agree Prevent Plant is a good program, because if you do not have the technology like drain tiling to manage your property, what are you supposed to do? But if we are going to continue to write these checks, then we must be able to come up with a formula for the people that want to improve their ground so they don't have to worry about PP. So things like EQIP, cost-sharing mains and control structures, we've got to make that money readily available. But I can tell you with 100% certainty that 95% of my customers will say, I do not trust the government. I want them out of my life. I want to be able to manage my own land. Because every time we talk to the government, they say, hey, yeah, come over and do this. And then all of a sudden, I can't touch anything on my quarter. Just ask my grandparents. So the biggest thing, if you don't take anything away, is we got to quit being divided and conquered. If Farm Bureau doesn't agree with Farmers Union, or Agassiz Drain Tile doesn't agree with Ellingson Drain Tile, or the soybean guys don't agree with the corn guys, we are not going to get anywhere. So if you want to call me and say, well, could you be the the middleman, which I do in a lot of water issues, I am happy to do that, but these meetings are moot if we're not going to walk into Washington together and say we've had enough. Thank you.